Greetings. I love Star Trek. I love everything there is about Star Trek. I can't say I've seen it all because I'm not one of those people who just buys every single streaming service that comes out. So I haven't seen Picard, though I want to. I saw the first season of Star Trek Discovery because a friend of mine bought the DVD, not really knowing what she was buying, watched the first 2 episodes, didn't like it, gave it to me. I liked most of them. I'll tell you the truth. There's a few that I just said, okay, I'm not watching these for my own purposes. But regardless of that, I have seen pretty much everything else that hasn't been on streaming. That means I haven't seen Lower Decks. So we're not talking about TV, however. I'm talking about movies. And I decided that I'm going to rank the 13 Star Trek movies that are out there, but with a slight difference. I am not going to talk about all 13 movies. I started out doing that. This is actually the 3rd time I'm doing this video. And I decided, you know what, talking about all 13 of them, trying to remember all the stuff and get it all out there, not only is problematic, but it's too darn long. Nobody even got time for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rank them all from number 13 down to number 1, but I'm only going to name the last 8. So I'm going to name those first, and then I'm going to talk about 5 through 1. I think that's just more efficient. That's a better way to go. And, you know, if you want more, we can talk about the other movies if there's comments, but these are mine. And I'm going to let you know that I am a fan, so I'm ranking these based on fan. I don't care what anyone else had to say about these movies. There's another YouTube channel called Trexpertise who actually did movies and TV and some other things, and I disagreed with him on enough of these for me to say, you know what, I'm going to do my own, because I do that. So here we go. Start with number 13, Star Trek Nemesis. Number 12, Star Trek Insurrection. Number 11, The Final Frontier. Number 10, Star Trek Beyond. Number 9, The Search for Spock. Number 8, Star Trek The Motion Picture, which gets kudos because it really started everything back again after the original show had been canceled. Number 7, Star Trek Into Darkness. And number 6, Star Trek Generations. That one was tough. Between that one and the one that I have in number 5, it could have gone either direction, but I decided that number 5 is better than seeing Picard and Kirk together. Boy, that was disappointing, but you know, you got to be true to yourself. So my number 5 movie is The Voyage Home. And The Voyage Home was actually the 4th of the original Star Trek movies that was out after the 3rd movie, which I mentioned earlier, where they were coming back to Earth after, you know, basically blowing up the Genesis planet or whatever. And it turned out that they had to go back in time to basically save humanity because they had to get some whales, some humpback whales. It was just drastically entertaining. They're back in the 80s. Heck, that's our period, or at least that was my period. And some of the things that they had to deal with were funny as sin. You know, trying to figure out how money worked. Going in and riding a bus. They rode a bus. They were on a nuclear warship. I mean, think about that. You know, we don't have a ton of those. We still have them, but we didn't have a ton of those. And you had that. They are just way out. They don't understand it. They're flying a Klingon ship, which means they're basically invisibility. It was just a lot of fun. I enjoyed this a lot. And they don't have Spock as the true Spock. You know, he's still smart, but he really doesn't know who he is. You'd have to remember what happened in the 3rd movie at the end to understand that they brought back a Spock who didn't have his memory, didn't have a lot of stuff. So it's just a lot of fun. I love that movie. And of course, we talk about whales because whales were going extinct. We're hoping that they don't. Maybe some of the rules that have been passed will save the whales so that if we get attacked by something because it was looking for whales, we'll be safe. Number 4 for me is Star Trek. And Star Trek was the first movie of the latest series of Star Trek movies. And it got a lot of heat from a lot of people, and I don't understand why. This movie was fun. Yes, we got a totally different James Kirk than what we were used to, but so what? You had to have a reboot. And what are we talking? Was this almost 50 years later? Almost. Not quite, but still. I thought it was fun. I liked the guy who played Spock. I liked the guy who played Dr. McCoy. I liked them all. I thought it was interesting that we had a Chekhov who was 17 years old and brilliant. I think, and I can't remember his name, Simon Pegg, there it is. Simon Pegg plays a great Scotty, and he's funny. And you had everything you wanted in this. You had daredevilism, you had spaceships fighting each other, you had like super killer Romulans who didn't look like Romulans. So we could have that old thing where we're talking about the Klingons and how come you had Klingons who used to look one way, another. Well, there you have with this. This was a fun movie, and we had our original Spock in it as well as the new Spock. You got 2 Spocks. What are you mad at? Number 3 for me was Undiscovered Country. Undiscovered Country was the last movie in the original series. And we had everyone back. They were older, and Kirk had to resolve issues with the fact that not only had the Klingons in the 3rd movie killed his son, but Spock had basically volunteered him to be the guy who was going to shepherd bringing peace with the Klingons. And Kirk didn't like it. It turned out it wasn't just those 2, but there's a whole lot of other people who not only didn't want the peace on both sides, but they were collaborating on both sides so that there would be no peace. Think about that as a conundrum. Suddenly your enemy is your best friend so that you can be your enemy. But it was fun. And you had Kirk, you had Iman in it. Iman, who turned out to be, well, they weren't really sure whether she was man or woman or whatever, but Kirk had fun. Yeah, whatever. I really enjoyed it, and it was a great send-off. It was just a great send-off to the original series because you knew it was going to be done. And it was just a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. You know, I didn't cry. No, I didn't cry. But we all knew, okay, this is it for these people, for it being them as the stars of the movie. Because some of them showed up in Star Trek Generations. Number 2 for me is Star Trek First Contact. And I thought this was interesting because they talked about, and I don't ask me what his name is, but Ephraim something, whatever, who was the guy who basically got the first warp drive working from Earth, and you had to deal with the Borg. And so you still have Picard, who still has these dreams about having to deal with the Borg, and you've got that. The Borg has now come through some kind of time portal, and they're back in the time, you know, just before there's warp, and they're looking to stop that, so they're looking to change history. Which is interesting because now that we've had all the Marvel movies that say, well, okay, you can actually change history, it just changes a different history, versus Star Trek, which says you can't do that, you know, we don't want to change history, you have to save it. But Picard, boy, I tell you, he was just great. He was here. Patrick Stewart was magnificent in this movie. I think everyone was magnificent. I can't remember the lady's name who played the Borg Queen, but she was magnificent. Brent Spiner. There's just so much great stuff in this movie. And it was interesting seeing that you can't kill the Borg with the lasers, but turn it into a machine gun and you can shoot them down. That's a little silly, but you know what? I enjoyed that. It's a lot of fun. It is just a fun movie. And then you see the Vulcans show up at the end of the movie and they put on a Creedence Clearwater Revival. So it was just craziness, but it was a lot of fun. And number one, anyone who watches the movies, almost anyone who watches these movies knows Wrath of Khan is going to be number 1. But you know what? The Trexpertise people had it ranked as number 3. What the devil? Wrath of Khan. You know, Wrath of Khan had a lot to live up to because the original motion picture, Star Trek, although we fans loved it, it didn't have a lot of action. It was very cerebral, and it had some great effects and everything, but it didn't really give us a Star Trek feel. So Wrath of Khan had to get it done. And they got Ricardo Montalban back. And it's interesting in the fact that he's all muscular and whatever. It turns out that was his real body. He was not wearing prosthetics. That was him. But something else most people didn't know is that he had injured himself from horse riding and whatever. So he really actually couldn't walk. And if you watch the movie, you notice there's almost no scenes where you see him trying to walk. You see some with him standing, but walking, you don't see it. It is brilliant. It's a very fun thing to watch. And there's another little sideline thing that most people didn't know. And I knew when I saw the movie, I said, something doesn't seem right about this. Chekhov is early, he's early in the movie, and they find the Botany Bay, and it's like, oh no, we have to get out of here. The Botany Bay, we're going to run into Khan. Okay, I improvised the lyrics, or the words. But the thing is, Chekhov wasn't on Enterprise when you had that episode. So we just made that up. And I knew that at the time. I was like, wait, this doesn't sound right. Doesn't matter. This is a great movie. And what's funny is that it was made for almost 10 times less than the original movie, because they cut down on a bunch of the effects and they made it more of the drama. This is a prime science fiction movie. This is a prime, science fiction movie. You could match it up with any Marvel movie. It's different type of dynamics, but it was just a great movie. And you got everyone you want. You got your great Spock, and you have Scotty doing his thing, and Captain Kirk's doing his thing. Everyone did their thing. It's the best Star Trek movie ever. Hard to match. And I don't care who thinks that this movie is not number one. I know it's number one, and the majority of y'all know it's number one. And there you have it. This is all the movies. Like I said, if I had done this movie's already, or this video is already going to be 13 minutes long. Had I done all of them, we'd have been here forever. And nobody wants to watch that. Anyway, I hope you like this. Let me know your thoughts on it, and we will talk later on. And maybe the next time I will have my mouth and the sound equal. We'll find out. Y'all take care.